So, there are currently 76 mobs in Minecraft, which is absolutely insane to think about. Every new update has been adding new ones, so that number will just keep growing. But what if I told you that there are currently 33 unimplemented Minecraft mobs? I know, when I started making this video, I didn't think there would be that many. And I'm not counting mobs from developer tweets or the Minecraft feedback website. These are 33 mobs that were confirmed in some way to be available to join the game. So today, I thought it would be fun to talk about them, and to keep this video from being boring, I'm also going to rank them on a tier list on how likely I think they are to make it into the game at some point. The tiers will be never gonna happen, very unlikely, might happen, could happen, probably will happen, and basically confirmed. But first, if you find this video interesting, liking the video and subscribing to my channel helps me out a lot. We're getting pretty close to 100 subscribers, and it would be amazing if we could reach that goal before the end of the year. Anyways, let's get into the video. So there are 3 categories of mobs in this video: removed mobs, unadded mobs, and vote losers. Let's start by talking about the first category, removed mobs. There are currently 6 mobs that were once in the game that have been completely removed. The human looked exactly like Steve and did basically nothing. They were only in the alpha versions of the game and had an interesting walk animation. Needless to say, this mob goes straight into never gonna happen. I see no reason for this mob to ever make it back into the game. It was weird and was probably made just to test mob spawning. The human kind of had some variants, but they were so unique that I'm gonna count these as their own mobs. These mobs were called Reyna, Steve, Black Steve, and Beast Boy. These mobs I find very fascinating. They don't look like anything else we've ever gotten in Minecraft. Just looking at some footage of these mobs shows that they look very out of place in this world. These 4 mobs show a possible future we may have gotten, in which Minecraft had a pretty different art style. I really don't see why they added these mobs unless they were experimenting with a new art direction to take the game. Thankfully, these mobs were removed shortly after they were added. I will happily put these mobs into the never gonna happen tier. These final removed mobs are definitely the most famous, being the pigmen and the zombie pigmen. Let's start with the zombie pigmen. If you played Minecraft before the Nether update, you'd find these guys all over the Nether. If you attacked one, all nearby zombie pigmen would attack you back. You might be saying, wait a minute, those are still in the game, I see them all the time. And you would be correct, kind of. This mob was replaced by a mob that did the exact same thing, the zombified piglin. I know, that's a super small difference, but technically this mob is no longer in the game. For that reason, this mob gets the never gonna happen tier. It was replaced by a mob that just makes a lot more sense and frankly looks a lot better. The other mob in this group, the pigman, was never really added to the game. This mob would have supposedly been a bodyguard that you could hire to protect you. Its texture was added to the game files, but was removed shortly before the piglin was added. Once again, this mob gets into the never gonna happen tier. It was essentially replaced by the piglin. Okay, now we're going to talk about the unadded mobs. There are 5 of these guys, and they are far more interesting than the last few. The giant was a mob that was added in very early versions of the game. It had the texture of a zombie, but it's absolutely massive. You can actually summon this using commands in Java Edition, but it will not do anything. It has no AI and is essentially just a big roadblock. This mob actually received some changes in the development cycle of the Village and Pillage update. They gave the mob the zombie AI, but it moved twice as fast. But these changes were removed, sadly, shortly afterwards. I'm going to put this mob in the very unlikely tier. It has been in the game for years and has had very few changes, but anything could happen. The zombie horse is horse, but zombie. It's in both Java and Bedrock, but does not spawn naturally. It functions pretty similar to a normal horse and is not hostile. This one is going into the might happen tier. It also hasn't had any major changes since it's been added, but the skeleton horse went a while without a use too, so I could definitely see a world where we have zombie rider enemies. The illusioner was an illager that was supposed to spawn in the woodland mansion, but for some reason it was scrapped. You can summon this mob in Java Edition, and it seems pretty complete. It would cast spells to blind you and create illusions of itself. It uses a bow to attack and is overall a pretty hard fight. I'm going to put this one in the could happen tier. It hasn't seen many updates, but it's a really cool concept, and it even made it into dungeons. The killer rabbit is a rabbit that tries to kill you. You can once again spawn this mob in Java, and it's actually kind of a hard fight because it's small and agile and does a good amount of damage. Despite this, I find it very unlikely that it would ever be added, unless it was added as an Easter egg with name tags or something like that. Finally, we have the Firefly. This is by far the most disappointing exclusion from the game. I talk about it more in the video linked in the top corner, But long story short, a bunch of dumb decisions led to this mob being scrapped. Technically, we don't know if this would have been a particle or a mob, but either way, I'm going to put this one in the might happen tier. I really hope it gets added to the game in the future, but there has been no talk about this mob since it was scrapped. Okay, this is the segment that most people know about, but I think that there are still some interesting facts to be shared. The first Minecraft mob vote took place in 2017, and there were 3 losers. Mob A, the monster of the ocean depths, or as we later found out was known as the barnacle, was a mob that would use its tongue to pull you underwater and try to drown you. This would have been a pretty cool enemy, but I'm going to put this in the might happen tier, simply because the developers said that the losers of this vote would never be added. I personally think that this doesn't actually mean that they will never add these mobs. There have been quite a few things that they said they would never add, like automatic crafting or dual effect potions. It would be weird to leave these great ideas out of the game, but I still feel like it hurts the chances of these mobs getting in quite a bit. The next mob, Mob B, or the Great Hunger, was a mob that would burrow into the ground and would somehow affect enchantments. This is the mob that we know the least about, but the concept sounds intriguing. I'm going to put this mob into the might happen tier 2, for the same reasons as the barnacle. The final lost mob, Mob D, or the Wildfire, is the mob that we know the most about besides the Phantom, the mob that won. The Wildfire made it into Minecraft Dungeons and is a really cool mini-boss. It has shields that protects it from hits and launches out shockwaves of fireballs. This mob was the coolest sounding option to me, and the fact it's in Minecraft Dungeons makes me think it has a higher chance of getting in. I'm gonna put this in the could happen tier. In 2018, there was an exclusive vote held in China, where there were 4 losers: the Chinese alligator, snub-nosed monkey, white-lipped deer, and the Beiji, or the river dolphin. All of these mobs would be super cool to get, but I think the lack of public knowledge of these makes them less likely than the other mobs, so I'm going to put them in the could happen tier. The other, far more popular vote that was held in 2018 was the first biome vote. There were 3, maybe 2 mobs from the 2 biomes that lost. The desert update contained the meerkat mob, and the savanna update contained the ostrich and the termite. Just like the firefly, we don't know if the termite would have been a particle or an actual mob, but for the sake of this video, we'll say it is. Both of these biomes have been confirmed to be making it into the game in the future, so all 3 of these mobs will be making it into the basically confirmed tier. The savanna update seems especially likely. It would go perfectly with the new armadillo. The same goes for the 2019 vote, and since the swamp update and the frog have already made it into the game, the vulture is the only mob missing from this vote. In my opinion, this mob was the coolest of the 3, and I can't wait to see it in the future. In 2020, the mob vote made its triumphant return. We all know how incredible the winner of this vote is, so let's see what we missed out on. The Moobloom, like the glow squid, first appeared in the mobile game Minecraft Earth. It would have apparently had some sort of relationship with bees and would spawn in flower forests. The other mob, the Isolator, was an illager that would spawn in mountains and summon ice blocks to hit the player with. This mob originated from the Creeping Winter DLC of Minecraft Dungeons. I personally feel like this was by far the best choice, but maybe that's just me. The developers never outright said these mobs were confirmed to be added in the future, but I think that that's the case because they didn't want to have an absolutely massive backlog of mobs that the community was expecting from them. I'm going to put these mobs in the probably will happen tier. The next mob vote had the Glare and the Copper Golem as its losers. The Glare was a floating bush-like mob that would spawn underground and would get angry when it was dark enough for mobs to spawn. The Copper Golem would be built by the player and would randomly press buttons. Both of these mobs would be cool to have, and I'm once again going to put them in the probably will happen tier. 2022 introduced us to the Rascal and the Tough Golem mobs. One of them is a mob that spawns underground, and the other is a golem that can be... Hey, wait a minute! In all seriousness, the Rascal is a cool concept. It's a mob that would essentially play hide and seek with you and reward you when you win. The Tough Golem is less cool, but it is still interesting, acting as a fancy way to hold your items. Both will probably be added in the future. And finally, the most recent vote had us losing the Crab and the Penguin. The Crab would spawn in mangrove swamps and would somehow drop its claw, which could be used to extend your block placing range. The Penguin would live in the Stony Shore biome and would somehow speed up your boat. Both of these mobs sound really cool and are probably going to be added in the future. They even called out the Penguin as having the potential to join the game at Minecraft Live. And with that, we have seen all 33 lost Minecraft mobs. This video was really fun to make, and I hope you found it interesting. I certainly did. Like I said earlier, we're on the road to reach 100 subscribers, so if you like this kind of content, subscribing would be awesome. Anyways, let me know which one of these mobs is your favorite in the comments, and I'll see you next time.